boneheaded plays that have been their Achilles heel thus far. Good teams don't make these type of plays to beat yourself. I guess that's the point that I'm making. Good teams don't do it that way.
Yeah. Well, good teams also don't draft and hire free agents that don't fit positions, and they also have more depth. So we got to realize we're not a good team right now. We're just not. We're a team that has potential to be a good team. And I hate saying stuff like that because I'm close to a few of the players. I really like the players we have on this team, but they're not good yet. Let me word it like that. They have the youth to be good. I mean, guys like, even on the offense, Unger is not exactly old. Jari Evans is old. Streif is old. But Pete's not old. Armstead's not old. Ingram's not old. And honestly, Ingram, in terms of a running back, most would consider him starting to get toward that old age. But he's only got about half the touches that most running backs his age has. So I think Mark Ingram could be effective, 30, 31, 32 years old. And he's only 26. He turns 27 this year. So, I mean, the offense is young. Then you've got Cam Jordan, same age. You've got Delvin Breaux, same age. You've got Kenny Vaccaro, same age, I believe, or he might be a year younger. P.J. Williams, young guy. Stephon Anthony, hopefully he gets to play, young guy. Even Craig Robertson's only 28 years old. There's a lot of youth that has time to build and mold and meld together and be a successful team. There's a lot of solid potential here, and maybe in 1 year, I've told everybody next year's why I'm excited, because that's the year between cap space falling off and Mickey Loomis's ability to move money around that we should have $30 million in spending money. People don't believe me when I say that number, but cap hell technically ends this year because guys like, Junior Gillette and all roll off. Guys like Jari Evans, if I remember right, and Ben Grubbs roll off. So cap hell technically is over next year because we always move, $10 million around easy during the year, and all those bad cap numbers are rolling off besides like Drew Brees. So, I mean, we actually have potential. I'm looking forward to this offseason so much, especially now that I realize playoffs just aren't happening this year.
Here's the problem that I have with that, and it's the only problem that I have with it. The Saints have not had the money in recent years to go after the big free agent fish. This we understand. But it's not like the moves that they've made have been A1 either. So I'm kind of afraid that if you didn't have money and you spent it unwisely, what the heck are you going to do when you have money? I'm a little bit afraid of the answer to that.
I don't know, man. That just means you have more money to make mistakes and hopefully find a gem.
You know what? Maybe.
Look, we haven't had horrible. Look, we haven't done horrible free agent completely. I mean, we did bring in Keenan Lewis, who was extremely good. He just got injured. I mean, we brought in Curtis Lofton, who was solid for us for a few years before we got rid of him. So we've done some success. We just happened to do the whole too much bang for our buck type deals with the Jarris Byrd signings.
I think that's the problem. As crazy as it sounds, the Saints actually do better when they don't spend a lot of money on players. Case in point, you looked at, this entire offseason, I think one of the moves that is going to get overlooked at the end of this season is to bring in Sterling Moore. He's been a phenomenal player thus far, and I understand that, he's not made any spectacular plays, but he's been really, really good in coverage. He's been really solid. Maybe solid is the best word to use for him he came, B.W. Webb. Nobody knew who B.W. Webb was before this game, but you didn't hear his name being called out as one of the guys saying he just got burned. So those type of signings, I think, is where Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton are a lot better at than going after a big fish like a Jarris Byrd, because I can tell you right now, I'm pretty sure there are many Saints fans who will sit down and tell you they would much rather have Malcolm Jenkins right now. As easy as they tried to run him out of town, they would much rather have him right now.
Well, let me say this on the Jenkins, because the only reason I'm going to comment on this because I've seen it several times on Twitter already. Cry as you will for Malcolm Jenkins, but let's not pretend that he was doing a ton for us in New Orleans. He has had more success with the Eagles because I think that team better complements him. But let's not pretend like he would be doing better, maybe even worse than Jarris Byrd, because Malcolm Jenkins, he didn't play on defenses that were this injured and this devoid of talent, at least in veteran talent. I can't say if I just pick Malcolm Jenkins up and replace him with Bird, he does better. I think he does worse because say what you will about Bird, laugh at him getting his ankles broken by Devontae Freeman, which we need to put up the question for the night. Who got their ankles broke better? Nick Fairley breaking Matt Ryan's ankles or Devontae Freeman breaking Jarris Bird's ankles? But I don't think Malcolm Jenkins comes in and does better. I really don't. So, yeah, maybe saves you a little bit of money, but you're going to be just as mad at him as you are at Bird right now.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm on the Malcolm Jenkins bandwagon because I was one of the guys who clearly saw his limitations as a free safety. In my opinion, he was playing the wrong position. Malcolm Jenkins would have been a lot better of a strong safety than he ever would be at free. But that was just me. But with that being said, I mean, Jarris Bird can only do so much. And I think at the end of this season, we will see the last of Jarris Bird, and it'll be Von Bell or whoever else they want to throw in that spot. But I'm in my own personal opinion, I'm ready to see the Saints defense next year if they can add a pass rusher, whether that be free agency or the draft, because I feel like they're not that far away from actually being a pretty solid defense, especially with the young guys getting this experience right now. It's going to hurt right now because you're going to get picked on, you're going to be laughed at, you're going to be told how horrible you are. But next year, hopefully that growth spurt hits and there'll be a different defense. I know it's kind of hard to wait for next year. And this year is not over yet. You know, I heard Coach Jim Morris rant on how they had 13 games left. I'm not predicting playoffs because if I know the Saints well enough, they're going to play just well enough to get outside and maybe get a mid-first round pick. But we're going to definitely see them, hit a point to where they catch fire, they win some games. I want to see what happens when they come back healthy. Because at this point, we don't know. Too many key players, are out.
Well, that kind of leads us into our next segment in how are you thinking about San Diego, man? Because let me be honest, personally, I don't see us winning. And I see us losing by a similar margin because that San Diego team, for one, I think the air got sucked out of New Orleans, the players specifically last night, because players, we know, they're on social media. They follow us. They follow, they see what you post. They see what, Nick Underhill posts. They read this stuff. They know what the fans like and expect. They went in because you could tell the momentum in the beginning of the game. All New Orleans. They went in thinking and knowing that they should beat that Atlanta Falcons team. So I think that loss is going to hit them pretty hard. And I think it's tough to carry that overcome that being a young team, go to San Diego and beat a team that Phillip Rivers, to me, is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. Why he is not always put in the top 5, why they put him in the top 10, I don't understand. That's we've gone over that. His talent's been wasted so much his career. But anyway, I don't see us beating the San Diego Chargers. I don't, especially with it being an away game. Maybe we can hold it a little closer and not give up 45 points. But what do you think?
I think if there's any game the Saints can win, it's this game out of the first 4, considering we've seen how the last 3 have shaped out. And it's not because San Diego is devoid of talent. As you said, Phillip Rivers, he's a stud at quarterback. However, they're injured, and they're injured in key spots that could rival what the Saints, the Saints in some areas. They're missing their jack of all trades, and Danny Woodhead, he's gone. They're missing Manti Te'o, who went out. Linebacker, he's out. They're missing wide receiver Keenan Allen, he's out. The San Diego Chargers are missing some very key pieces. And mind you, they just struggled to beat they struggled in a hard-fought game. They lost to the Colts over the weekend. They blew out Jacksonville, which at this point
that's Jacksonville though.
Exactly. But when you just look at some of the guys that they've lost, I mean, it's almost Saints-like. So I think in this game, the two teams are evenly matched. Again, I'm not worried about the Saints' pass defense, as crazy as that may seem, especially with Keenan Allen being out. I'm concerned with the Saints' run defense. And if they don't shore that up, then, San Diego will blow the doors off of them.
Well, but if they let me say that the guy that I'm worried about, personally, because San Diego's got 7 sacks. They've got more sacks than any team we faced so far. They're doing pretty decent. They're not great, obviously. 7's not something to write home about. But I don't know how many of you Saints fans watch a lot of other NFL games. I know Brian here, he takes a peek at some few. But, man, Casey Hayward for the San Diego Chargers is having a year right now. He's got 3 interceptions. He's got 5 pass deflections. I mean, he is having a year off that quarterback spot. He might be the best cornerback we'll have faced so far, so we could see Brandon Cooks having another tough game. I mean, so I'm worried about that one. That's what I'm worried about. I could take everybody else, but, man, Casey Hayward, is he balling this year?
Yeah, and it frightens me that it's that situation, but I like the Saints' chances to be able to exploit that matchup, even if Cooks is nothing more than a decoy. The problem that I'm having is that I've noticed that there's home Drew Brees and there's road Drew Brees. Mm-hmm, home Drew Brees has put up 30-plus points per game. Road Drew Brees struggled against the Giants. Mind you, the Giants may have a better defense than the San Diego Chargers. We'll admit to that. But the Giants also didn't have to travel west. You have to go east, which is a little bit easier than traveling west. The hours are different. It's a more of a laid-back atmosphere. It's just something crazy about the West. I don't know, maybe it's just the idea that you're going to palm trees and pretty women. I don't know. But for whatever reason, it's a little bit strange going west. I don't know. That's what scares me the most about that game.
Well, I'll say this. Phillip Rivers scares me, but you mentioned the run game. This should be the easiest. That's probably a bad word, but our run defense should have its best game of the year if we're just going off who they're fighting against. Because at least with New York, while their run game's not stellar, they did have a two-headed type of attack where they had speed and power. Now that Danny Woodhead is down, all that San Diego has is Melvin Gordon. And his first game of the season, I remember watching, he looked strong, looked real good. Since then, I haven't seen that same consistency, that same strength, because he's averaging 3.5 yards a carry right now. He's got over 50 attempts, but he hasn't even breached 200 yards. Overall, he's back to being that struggle that he's been a head scratcher for those who don't get to follow San Diego at all. This is a first round running back draft pick, and everybody knows how rare those are in today's world. I mean, you don't see a lot of running backs just getting 100 yards or being drafted in the first round. It's all quarterbacks and wide receivers. So there's pretty high expectations for him and just hasn't really been living up to it. I'm pulling up his stats now. Yeah, Indianapolis held him to 35 yards on 16 carries. That's pretty dismal. So, I mean, in terms of who they have to face, hopefully getting Tyler Davison back re-solidifies that defensive line and they can shut down that run game.
And you know what? Another thing while you were saying that made me kind of just pop in my head here. If the Saints can bring the aggression to the run game that we saw against Atlanta to San Diego, that changes everything. Because Mark Ingram, as you said, was averaging 5 yards a carry. That means if you give him the ball, you're probably going to get a first down every 2 times you give it to him. Mm-hmm. If the Saints can just ever stick. I know you put out stats on what happens when the Saints rush for 100 yards. I put out stats when the Saints have at least 25 attempts. Drew Brees cannot afford to go to San Diego and throw the ball almost 60 times. Saints have to run the ball. I mean, it's just that simple. And I get so annoyed when I hear Coach Payton in the post-game press conference saying that he needs to run the ball. Dude, you control that.
Yeah, it's pretty aggravating. And let me just put it this way, because we mentioned that he was doing over 5 yards a carry. Mark Ingram doing that successful is only averaging 55 yards a game right now. And to me, that's inexcusable. You can't do that to who, to me, is your best running back by far. I don't think there's anybody as good as Ingram. And he's on pace to not even hit 900 yards this year because they're barely using him. And yet he's got more first downs than the other running backs combined. And that's not knocking the other running backs. I think that the stable this year